Mitch,
Yep,
how about you?
I agree. I thought it was really good. I too, partly I think all of us latch on to the man who admitted to hesitancy beforehand, because that's really the big problem right now, I think. So I think that is really good to include that. Can I ask you, Robin, is this outreach effort, is it directed at any particular demographic, or is it just trying to generally get the community?
We're really trying to simplify it, obviously, for the individuals that we work with directly at Opportunities Incorporated, but really our diverse community at large. So that's where the simplification really comes into play, especially in the messaging and the toolkit, so that we can just get people on those really quick points. That's what we're hoping to, but all of our flyers are all going to be in Spanish as well. They all have, we already have created about 4 multiple flyers, and the toolkit's going to have that as well. But we're looking to obviously impact individuals with disabilities as well, because we work with them at Opportunities. So the clinics were great, our clinics, on-site clinics. So yes, we're really going after that diverse community.
Okay, and I know this is one was focusing on education. You probably ought to, when you talk about, contact us, you might want to mention in every one of the videos that, you can help get people to the appointments, because I think transportation or help them arrange, navigate the appointments. Those are the kind of things that I think are really causing problems for people with disabilities. They don't really know how to, find out where to go, or how, all these websites you have to navigate, and
Yes,
all that business. And then the transportation.
absolutely.
is
That's really going to be in our key in our empowerment video, Mitchell. That's kind of how to get it, like how to get access to it, how to navigate to get the transportation. And those are really great points. We will make sure that that is very key in that video. And the toolkit itself will have a page for each one of these areas. Education is strictly the educating on the vaccines themselves, the 3 different types. The encouragement is what are all the reasons why you should get the vaccine. And then the empowerment is how do you actually get it? Where do you find those locations? How can we help you with transportation? And how can you get signed up and have it happen?
Yeah.
So we kind of put it in 3 sections so that we could really make it simple for people to understand.
Excellent. That's so great. I think too, BPDD is going to be working on we're working with all of these groups to kind of put together a resource so people will know what each of these groups is doing in the community. So I think that will be an important piece.
We're happy to be on that call, in that meeting too, Sally. So
yeah, that's
we
great.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me on and sharing this.
Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. I can see that Caitlin got our live Facebook working. So to those who joined us, we're having some problems going live on Facebook. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mitch. He's going to give us his wisdom and knowledge on the vaccine and how things are going for people with disabilities.
Okay, and I also want to show everyone my card. I'm fully vaccinated. I feel like I have a little suit of armor around me now that I didn't have a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
My experience with the vaccine, first shot, no big deal. I got the Pfizer, hurt a little bit, a little achy the next day. Second one knocked me out pretty much, I have to say. Yeah, I mean, it was really the next day I was pretty much asleep the whole day. So actually felt really good. So, I'm thinking about getting one every week so I can sleep better, because normally I don't. That's kind of an extreme way to get a good night's sleep, but it was fine. So I feel great about it, and really quite relieved. It's going to open up some doors for me. Partly my mom is in a nursing facility, and so I'll feel a lot more comfortable going to visit her there. Actually have not visited her the whole time that this has been going on, really. So it's great. And again, we encourage everybody to get on out there and get it. Today, Marcia will probably talk about this, but the Johnson is back in business. The small number of adverse events, as I like to say in my simple terms, the blood clotting thing is a tiny percentage of the folks who take it had any problem with that. So it's really great to have the Johnson back in the mix, because it's the only single dose version that we have. And when you're trying to vaccinate hard to reach populations, hard enough to find them once, really hard to find them twice. So that's great. We're really glad to have that going. The thing I wanted to talk about today, just briefly before I turn it over to Marcia, who has lots of good information for us, is I did want to talk about the issue of the people who have guardians. A lot of people in Wisconsin have guardians, and a lot of those guardians have authority to make medical decisions on behalf of their wards. Not all of them, but many, probably most of them do. That's one of the rights and responsibilities that is typically assigned to the guardian in a guardianship case. So what we've encountered here are some people who have contacted us, wards, who have said, "Hey, I want to get vaccinated, but my guardian, doesn't want to do it. What can we do about that?" And talked a little bit about this the last time, but we've actually, gone through this a few times now since that last meeting. And it's really important that guardians understand that they have to make this. They're officers of the court. They were appointed by the state of Wisconsin to be a person's guardian, and they're obligated to act in the best interest of their ward. That means that they have to approach the way they handle their ward's affairs maybe differently even than they handle their own. They're supposed to exercise the same amount of care and prudence as they would in their own life, but if they're not very careful in their own life, they're supposed to do a better job for their ward. So if you're a guardian who has decided that they don't, for whatever reason, want to get vaccinated, and there's a lot of people who unfortunately have decided that they are not going to get vaccinated. And that's a personal decision for you. It's not a personal decision you can make for your ward. When you're talking about the ward and your authority comes from the state of Wisconsin, you're obligated to act in the best interest of the ward. And that means to look at the evidence and to apply the evidence and the information that is based in fact, not based on subjective feelings about something. And the fact of the matter is, and we've talked about it here a lot, there is no evidence that this vaccine produces substantial or even minimal risks to people who take it. I mean, yeah, you get tired after you take the second dose sometimes. Some people feel a little achy and your arm hurts, but that's nothing compared to what happens if you get COVID-19. And so it is super important that guardians understand that they're free not to take the vaccine. They're not free to prevent their wards from getting it, especially if the ward has expressed an interest in getting it. And that's what two of our inquiries have been. Wards who call us, they're competent enough to find Disability Rights Wisconsin, or they have friends who are able to help them find us. They want to get the vaccine, and the guardian is either saying no or just dilly-dallying or whatever it is. And so a couple points within the law. One is a guardian is always supposed to be involving the ward in any decisions, especially in decisions related to voluntary acceptance of medical care, which is what this is. It's so the guardian should be contacting the ward and talking about the vaccine. And I think a lot of them are, and that conversation will typically be, hey, don't worry about this. This thing is safe. You should take it because you don't want to get COVID. But, the other conversation, I suppose, could occur, there's a minor risk with the Johnson vaccine. Maybe that information should be disclosed. But it should be talked about. And unless the ward is actively objecting to the vaccine, the guardian has the authority, based on the best interests of the ward, to go ahead and get them vaccinated through their guardian powers. And if the ward is saying, hey, I want it, I really want it, then they really should be doing it, because the ward wants it. Their preferences are paramount when they are expressed and not unreasonable. And the guardian is obligated under the law to follow those wishes to the maximum extent possible when it is possible. So, our position is that, unless there's some reason that this particular ward should not get vaccinated, and there are a couple of medical reasons why that would be the case for a very, very small, tiny minority of the people who are eligible for the vaccine, then the guardian should be, making arrangements to get the ward vaccinated. I mean, if the ward has some, extreme aversion to shots, that might be something that they should take into consideration in deciding whether or not to do it. But, or if there's some other medical reason why it's contraindicated, then those are appropriate reasons to, maybe think about not doing it until maybe there's an oral version available or something. But apart from that, there really isn't. There's no defensible reason why a guardian would not get somebody vaccinated. So the failure to do that, I think, is essentially medical neglect, and that's a pretty serious thing for a guardian to be doing. We've approached it with the guardians who have been reluctant to vaccinate their wards in terms of, hey, what you're doing is neglecting the ward's medical needs, and you need to stop doing that. And if you don't, the ward can request that you be replaced as guardian, or that the court order you to arrange for the vaccine. So it's a pretty important thing, really important for guardians to get out there and do their job, which is to make sure the person has available to them any tools that could prevent them from getting this horrible illness. So that's my spiel for the day. Turn it over to Marcia or anybody.
Always good. No, I don't see any questions in this chat. I don't think on Facebook either. Nope, nothing on Facebook. So
okay,
we'll turn it over to Marcia.
So I just kind of want to follow up just a minute on what Mitch said, which really, if there's any question on whether a person should have the vaccine or not, based on their other coexisting health conditions, that should be answered by the doctor. The person must have a primary care physician in addition to specialists probably, but the answer can be obtained, and most of the time the answer is going to be the risks of getting COVID for someone with coexisting conditions is so much more harmful than the very slight possibility of having a response or a reaction to the injections. The other thing I want to jump right into is the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Really, I think what people need to realize is that temporary hold on the vaccine shows just how well our system of government does in monitoring vaccine. It should not create a scare for taking a vaccine. Instead, it should be reassuring. They're very, very closely monitoring. The CDC and FDA looked very closely at this. The recommendation, and I would strongly agree with this recommendation, that even though it's a slight, only 7 people per million, so a slight chance of getting this severe reaction, they're encouraging women under 50 to have a different vaccine. And I would really encourage that too, especially for individuals that may not be able to clearly explain how they feel, because the issue with the response with this unusual clotting event, I'll just call it that, but it's far more dangerous than just a clot in your leg. It's somewhat subtle, and it happens up to 3 weeks after the injection. So I think it could be missed for a while, for someone who's not verbal or not clearly able to explain how they feel. And this is a serious enough situation that you end up in the hospital. It's very rare, but for any woman under 50 who has a developmental disability or challenge with verbalizations, explaining themselves, there's an abundance now of both Pfizer and Moderna. So there's no reason you need Johnson & Johnson. And just like Mitch said, it's a one and done, and you're not going to be able to get the second shot. And I think of people who are homeless, for instance, not the people about whom we are speaking in this, but homeless people, often older, they are a perfect example of where Johnson & Johnson would be an absolutely safe alternative. They can have one shot and then that's it. And so again, Johnson & Johnson is out there. It's safe for the appropriate people, but for the population with whom we work, I would encourage, if you're under 50 and female, getting one of the other vaccines. So the latest thing, in addition, first, any questions coming up about Johnson & Johnson?
No questions at the moment. Let me look
Okay.
on the, yep, nope. You're keep it going.
Okay, so the CDC recommendations for fully vaccinated people got a new hit on the media yesterday because they're opening things up a little more. I think it's way overdue, frankly, myself. But fully vaccinated people, they are saying now do not need to wear masks, even if you're in a group outdoors of people, unless you're in a very large group, like a music concert or something like that. You can go without wearing a mask. And for a long time, we've said if you're outside and you're 6 feet apart, you didn't need to wear a mask. That's still true for people who aren't vaccinated. But if you're vaccinated, even if you're in a group that's closer together outdoors, you don't need to wear a mask. You can travel if you have that opportunity. You will need to wear a mask on the plane, but hang on to that card, like Mitch showed you, like I have. Treasure that card, keep it safe, because you may well need to use it if you're going to travel, in showing the place where you're going that you have been vaccinated, or perhaps showing the airlines. And so that's another thing that's opening up. If you are with other people who are vaccinated, if all the people that you are in a group with are vaccinated, no masks, not even indoors, no challenge with keeping the distance. You can give them a hug if you want. And if you are going to meet with a family, so like for me, my husband and I are vaccinated, and it's been more than 2 weeks since we've had our vaccines. We have family coming who probably are not vaccinated, children and grandchildren from one family, but are at low risk. And it's perfectly fine. They're saying, no worries, you can do that. And like Mitch said, he can go and visit his elderly mother. He may well have to wear a mask there. That's probably the rules. And there's mask wearing in public in general that we need to follow, even though we have been vaccinated. There's a very, very slight chance we could still get COVID-19. And that kind of was in the news lately too. So I want to address that. It's like 0.03%, so very low percent But they did come up with the numbers of people who got COVID-19 even after being vaccinated in Wisconsin, and it's 600 and some people. But that's, that's out of 1.8 million people that have been vaccinated. So, so it's, you're very safe, but not 100% safe once you've had the vaccine. And that's why they're saying, follow the rules. If you're going in somewhere, part of that is just, that's what we need to do for the other people too, to encourage compliance with wearing masks. And then if you're in a large rowdy group outdoors, then you should wear a mask. But in general, one other big thing that's different. If you've been exposed, you've heard someone else you had been with now has COVID-19, you do not have to quarantine if you've had both shots plus 2 weeks. You can just go on about your life unless you start feeling symptoms. And then, of course, you need to be tested, and then you need to quarantine. But that's a big deal too. You can just move on with life, even if you've been exposed, with the very strong assumption that you're not going to get it. And for that 600 plus people who did get it, that small percentage, they mostly had very minor symptoms. They hardly even knew they had it. Just so that again is very reassuring. One of the questions that keeps coming up is, will we need a booster shot? And that's still a question mark. There's a big question mark on that one. And part of it is dependent on what you and your neighbor and the man down the street and the person in the store, what everybody does. If people get vaccinated, that's the biggest deal. People need to get vaccinated. If we can get people vaccinated, we may not need a booster shot. Pfizer and Moderna are already working on booster shots to address some of the variants that have, changed their how they look a little bit. And so that's wise that they're planning and making a booster shot to be available if needed. But if enough people get their shots, it's very likely that the virus will just kind of fizzle out because it won't be able to spread. And so then we might not need a booster shot. Another issue that affects it is how long will the current vaccinations continue to be effective? And so far, we know that they're still very effective at least 6 months from having the injections, because that's how long it's been for some people that have had the vaccine. They keep checking and the antibodies are still very strong. And then you have a second set of soldiers, if you will, to fight the enemy. And that's our T cells. That's another part of our immunity. And so far, it's looking really good. And then there's still another part of it. How soon will vaccinations be approved for teens and for children? Because that's in Wisconsin about 20% of the population. So if we can get to the point where teenagers under 16 and then children can be immunized, that will also increase the chance of not needing a booster, because there'll be even fewer people who would be getting the virus. There's good news as far as from ages 12 and up. Pfizer has already gone through all phase 3s of testing, and they've submitted data to the CDC and FDA with information on that group. They're hopeful in the summer that it will be approved. And so there's a real possibility that from 12 and up could have vaccinations before fall. And that would be really great. That's another section of people that the virus wouldn't have a hold on. And so, again, if you know people who have children in that age group, keep an eye on that. And then they are working now on the younger children under 12. That is going to take more time. They have to be very cautious, carefully adjustment of dosages. And then they have to also schedule around other vaccines that children get. So the optimistic timeline for children 6 months up to 12 years would be early 2022. But it's, it's in the works. I would hope, I really would hope that we could get past the vaccine hesitancy among adults so that we could approach herd immunity without the children. But as you may have heard or seen in the news, there is a big concern because we're seeing less demand now for the vaccine. And so, if I just looking at the state, I looked at the state of Wisconsin. Dane County, Door County is in the lead. 58% of their population has had at least one shot, and 45% have had both. And I'm thinking, they're thinking about tourism. I'm guessing they're really motivated because they want it to be safe there, and they want people to come back to visit them. Dane County is next, and pretty good. 57.9% have had first dose, and 41.8%, and this is as of yesterday's afternoon, have had both doses, and 80% of people are 65 and older. But then you look at Taylor County, so you can look at all the different counties in our state, and they're down at the bottom. Only 23% of people there have had one shot, and only 18% have had both shots. So, it's variable. And then just to touch briefly, if you look at the news at all, you know that in other countries, there's a huge surge, especially in India. It's very, very sad there. They're maxed out. People are dying, trying to get into hospitals. It's very sad. But, and Brazil is also really struggling. The variants from different countries that you've probably heard about, the UK, South Africa, Brazil, are in the US. They are continuing to do genomic sequencing on when people have a virus to see what it is. And so far, the vaccines are working on all of the variants. And so that's really good news. And so I don't want anybody to panic. Of course, I don't think any of you are planning to go to India right now or Brazil, but you definitely don't want to go. There are some countries now where it wouldn't be an issue for international travel, but there are certainly a lot of countries where it's a crisis, and it's a very severe crisis. So we can be thankful. Wisconsin is doing really well. Michigan and Minnesota have struggled. And so there is the possibility that they could come over the border and we could have some increase in numbers again. But so far, so good. The numbers are down. The death rate is down. Hospitalization rates are down. It doesn't mean we can just go, whoop-de-doo, we're ready to go back to normal. It means everybody needs to get their shots, and then we'll look at going back to normal. Any questions?
No, I don't see any questions. I did find, and I'll just show this really quick, and then Caitlin's gonna show the video again for people who didn't see it. But the CDC created this really nice graphic And I just found it on the CDC website, but we'll get this linked on our Facebook page for people. But it's it's what Marcia was talking about. So
Right. Yeah, I'm glad you did that because I saw that yesterday.
yes, I know.
Yeah.
I was looking for it this morning. I was gonna send it out, but I wasn't able to do that. So I just thought I'd share it. But we'll get that linked on our Facebook page and also our website, because I just
Good.
think it's a great graphic for, especially for people with disabilities. It's a very plain language document.
Very
So,
good. Yes.
all right. Caitlin is going to show the video again because we got started a little late on the Facebook Live. So we had a video from our speaker from Opportunity on some of the education they're doing around vaccinations. So I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin, and then Caitlin's going to wrap us up because I have to get off. So I'm going to leave it in your capable hands, people. And thank you so much for joining us today. And Caitlin, I'll wrap it up for me. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Laura Lloyd, and welcome to the COVID Vaccine Community Outreach Project video series, where we will focus on education, encouragement, and empowerment to advance health equity across Wisconsin. What are you waiting for? Educate yourself on the COVID vaccine. It is safe and effective. There are minimal side effects, and you build your immunity in only 2 weeks.
Well, vaccines in the past, I never had any side effects, so.
It was very quick and easy.
I think it's better to be safe than sorry. I know what it is to not have it.
Encourage yourself to get the COVID vaccine. It will build your resistance against COVID-19. You can boost protection for yourself and others. Plus, you'll be part of creating a safer community.
I have a mom who has COPD. Definitely would hate to bring any sort of issues to my family.
I've never been big on vaccines. I think because of the severity and having lost a brother to it and an aunt and a cousin kind of made it more personal. It's just a must.
Empower yourself to get the COVID vaccine. Everyone over 16 is eligible for the vaccine. Free vaccination. Map of vaccine locations is available online or call 844-684-1064 for vaccine locations.
It was easy. I was already here and I didn't have to travel anywhere. It was very convenient.
This is close to my job too.
I'm just excited for a better 2021.
Education, encouragement, and empowerment for yourself to get back to work, leisure, and life. What are you waiting for? Your time is now. For more information, contact our Community Outreach Task Force Navigator. Thank you for doing your part to keep our community safe.
All right, so we'll make, as soon as that video goes live, we'll make sure that we share it because I think it's got some great information. But I want to thank Mitch and Marcia for joining us again. They're such invaluable resources as we are navigating this vaccine landscape here in Wisconsin. So we always appreciate that they're willing to come on and tell us what all of the good information that they know. We will continue to share resources on Facebook and in our Power Mail emails. So you can definitely find more from us there, and we'll probably be back in May to do it again. So thanks so much, everybody, for sticking with us this morning. And thanks again to Mitch and Marcia.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.